The rain had been falling steadily all afternoon, a soft, relentless drizzle that blurred the city lights into shimmering halos. Emma sat alone on the bench beneath the flickering street lamp, her coat pulled tight around her, but it did little to keep out the chill that wasn't just from the weather. She watched the people pass by, their umbrellas bobbing like colorful mushrooms in the gray evening, but no one seemed to notice her. Just another face in the crowd, a stranger with no story worth telling. She had come to this part of town on a whim, drawn by a restless urge she couldn't quite explain. The cafe she'd planned to visit was closed, the windows dark and empty, so she ended up here instead, near the old park where the city's forgotten souls sometimes gathered. Emma wasn't one of them, not really. She was just a woman trying to disappear, to blend into the background and forget the past that clung to her like a shadow. Her fingers trembled as she pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages she didn't want to read. The last one was from her sister, a simple, "Are you okay?" that felt like a lifeline and a weight all at once. Emma stared at the screen, then locked it and slipped the phone back into her pocket. She wasn't okay. Not by a long shot. A sudden movement caught her eye, a figure approaching through the mist, tall and steady, with a purposeful stride that seemed out of place in this quiet, forgotten corner. He stopped a few feet away, his coat soaked from the rain, and looked down at her with eyes that held a strange mixture of curiosity and something deeper, something almost familiar. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice low but kind. Emma hesitated, unsure whether to trust this stranger. She wanted to say no, to tell him she was fine and didn't need help, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she nodded, a small, fragile gesture that felt like admitting defeat. "I'm Jack," he said, extending a hand. She looked at it for a moment before taking it, surprised by the warmth of his grip. "Emma," she replied softly. They sat together on the bench, the rain continuing its quiet symphony around them. Jack didn't ask too many questions, just enough to keep the conversation flowing without pushing too hard. Emma found herself opening up in small ways, sharing fragments of her story, her job, the accident that had changed everything, the loneliness that followed. Jack listened without judgment, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of her thoughts. When she mentioned the accident, his expression darkened, but he didn't pry. Instead, he shared a piece of his own story, a secret he'd kept hidden for years, a burden that had shaped his life in ways no one could see. As the night deepened, Emma realized she wasn't alone anymore. The stranger beside her was no longer just a passerby. He was someone who understood the weight of silence, the pain of secrets, and the fragile hope of new beginnings. When the rain finally stopped, they stood together, reluctant to part ways. Jack looked at her with a quiet intensity and said, "There's a lot you don't know about me, Emma. But maybe if you're willing, I can show you." Emma felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. And for the first time in months she smiled. The morning sun filtered through the cracked blinds of Emma's small apartment, casting long golden beams across the worn wooden floor. She lay awake, the events of the previous night swirling in her mind like a restless tide. Jack's words echoed softly, "There's a lot you don't know about me, Emma. But maybe if you're willing, I can show you." The promise in his voice was fragile but real, like a thread reaching out through the darkness. She hadn't felt that kind of connection in years. Not since before the accident, before everything had fallen apart. The accident that had taken her confidence, her independence, and left her with scars no one could see. Emma sat up slowly, the ache in her joints a reminder of the life she now lived. But beneath the pain there was a spark, a quiet determination to not let her past define her future. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table. A message from Jack. "Coffee? I know a place that's open early." Emma smiled, a little hesitant but eager. She typed back, "I'll be there." The cafe was a small, tucked-away spot with chipped paint and mismatched furniture, the kind of place that felt like a secret refuge from the world. Jack was already there when she arrived, seated at a corner table with 2 steaming cups of coffee. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and for a moment the weight of the past seemed to lift. They talked about everything and nothing, the city, their favorite books, the music that moved them. Jack's stories were laced with humor and pain, a delicate balance that made Emma feel like she was peeling back layers of a man who had been hiding in plain sight. He told her about his childhood, growing up in a neighborhood where dreams were often crushed before they could take flight. About the mistakes he'd made, the people he'd lost, and the secret he'd carried alone for years. Emma listened, captivated by the raw honesty in his voice. She shared her own fears and hopes, the loneliness that had become her constant companion. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not as a broken woman, but as someone worthy of love and understanding. As the morning slipped into afternoon, Jack leaned in, his expression serious. "There's something I need to tell you," he said quietly. "Something that might change everything." Emma's heart quickened. She nodded, bracing herself. Jack took a deep breath. "I'm not just a stranger who happened to sit next to you in the rain. I've been watching you for a while. Not in a creepy way, I promise. I know what it's like to feel invisible, to be trapped by your past. And I wanted to be there when you were ready to step out of the shadows." Emma's eyes searched his face, looking for any sign of deceit, but all she found was sincerity. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you're stronger than you think," Jack replied. "And because sometimes the people who seem the most alone are the ones who need someone the most." The weight of his words settled over her like a warm blanket. For the first time, Emma allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face the world alone. They left the cafe together, stepping into the bustling streets with a newfound sense of hope. The city no longer felt cold and indifferent. It was alive with possibilities, waiting for them to claim their place in it. As they walked side by side, Emma realized that the stranger who had once been just a fleeting presence in her life was becoming something much more. A companion, a confidant, and perhaps the key to unlocking a future she had thought was lost forever. Days passed, each one folding into the next like pages in a book Emma wasn't sure she wanted to finish. But with Jack, the story felt different, unfolding with a rhythm that was both unpredictable and comforting. They met often, sometimes by chance, sometimes by design, sharing moments that stitched together the frayed edges of Emma's life. One evening, Jack invited her to a small art gallery tucked away in a quiet part of town. The walls were lined with paintings that seemed to pulse with emotion, colors bleeding into one another, capturing pain, hope, and everything in between. Emma wandered through the rooms, her fingers grazing the rough canvas of a piece that reminded her of a stormy sea. Jack watched her quietly, then said, "Art has a way of showing us what words can't. Sometimes it's the only way to make sense of the chaos inside." Emma nodded, feeling the truth of his words settle deep within her. She realized that Jack wasn't just sharing his story with her. He was inviting her to see the world through his eyes, to understand the scars he carried beneath the surface. As they left the gallery, the night air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of rain that had fallen earlier. They walked slowly, their steps in sync, the silence between them comfortable rather than awkward. Jack stopped suddenly, turning to face her. "There's something I want to show you," he said, his voice low. Curious, Emma followed him through winding streets until they reached a small, neglected park. The swings creaked in the breeze, and the faint glow of streetlights cast long shadows across the empty benches. Jack led her to a weathered wooden bench beneath an ancient oak tree. "This is where I come when I need to think," he said. "When the world gets too loud and I need to find a little peace." Emma sat beside him, the rough wood pressing against her palms. For a moment, they simply watched the night unfold around them. The distant hum of traffic, the rustle of leaves, the occasional bark of a dog. Then Jack spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't told you everything. There's a part of my life I've kept hidden, even from myself." Emma turned to him, her eyes wide with concern. "You can tell me," she said gently. He hesitated, then nodded. "It's about my brother. We were close once, but things changed. He made choices that tore us apart, and I've been carrying the guilt ever since." Emma reached out, placing a hand over his. "You're not alone in that. We all have parts of our past we wish we could change." Jack's grip tightened slightly, a silent thank you. "I'm scared, Emma. Scared that if you knew everything you'd walk away." She shook her head, her voice firm. "I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever." The vulnerability in that moment was raw and real, a fragile bridge between two wounded souls. Emma realized that the stranger who had once been just a passerby in the rain was now someone she trusted with her heart. As the night deepened, they stayed on the bench, sharing stories and dreams, fears and hopes. The world outside faded away, leaving only the quiet promise of something new, something worth fighting for. The days that followed were a delicate dance of discovery and hesitation. Emma found herself waking with a strange mix of anticipation and anxiety, wondering what the day might bring when Jack's name appeared on her phone screen. Their conversations grew deeper, peeling back layers of pain and hope, laughter and regret. It was as if they were both learning to breathe again after holding their breath for far too long. One afternoon, Jack invited Emma to his apartment, a modest space filled with books, photographs, and the faint scent of cedarwood. It was the first time she had stepped into his world, and the walls seemed to whisper stories of a life lived quietly but fully. He showed her a collection of old letters tied with a faded ribbon, and she could see the weight those words carried. "I used to write to my brother every week," Jack said softly, even when he stopped answering. Emma reached out, tracing the edges of the letters with her fingertips. "It's hard to let go of someone you love, even when they hurt you." Jack nodded, eyes distant. "I've been trying to find a way to forgive him, and myself." Their hands found each other across the table, a silent promise of support and understanding. Emma felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a fragile hope that maybe healing was possible. But life, as it often does, wasn't ready to give them peace just yet. A few days later, Emma received a call that shattered the fragile bubble they had built. Her sister's voice was tight with worry. "Emma, Mom's in the hospital. It's serious." The news hit her like a physical blow. Memories of childhood, of laughter and love, mingled with the pain of years spent apart. Emma felt the old familiar weight settle on her shoulders, the weight of responsibility, guilt, and fear. Jack was there before she could even ask for help, his presence steady and unwavering. "We'll get through this," he said, his voice a quiet anchor in the storm. The hospital was a cold, sterile place, filled with the hum of machines and whispered prayers. Emma sat by her mother's bedside, holding her hand, feeling the fragile pulse beneath her fingers. The doctor spoke in hushed tones about complications and uncertain outcomes, but Emma clung to hope like a lifeline. Jack stayed close, offering quiet comfort and practical support. He navigated the maze of hospital bureaucracy with a patience Emma admired, never once making her feel alone. In those long, sleepless nights, they shared stories of family, of loss, forgiveness, and the complicated ties that bind. Emma realized that Jack's secret wasn't just about his brother. It was about the way pain could ripple through generations, shaping who they were and who they might become. One evening, as the city lights flickered outside the hospital window, Jack took Emma's hand. "I want you to know something," he said, his voice steady despite the exhaustion in his eyes. "No matter what happens, I'm here. Not just as a stranger or a friend, but as someone who cares." Tears welled in Emma's eyes, a mixture of gratitude and fear. She wanted to believe him, to trust in the possibility of something real. But the past had taught her to be cautious, to guard her heart fiercely. The days blurred together, a whirlwind of doctors' visits, whispered conversations, and moments stolen between the chaos. Emma found strength in Jack's unwavering support, and slowly the wall she had built around herself began to crumble. When her mother finally opened her eyes, weak but alive, Emma felt a surge of relief so powerful it brought her to her knees. She looked at Jack, who smiled softly, the weight of unspoken promises hanging between them. As they left the hospital together, the world outside seemed brighter, filled with the possibility of new beginnings. Emma knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Jack by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change, each day bringing new challenges and unexpected moments of joy. Emma and Jack settled into a rhythm that felt both unfamiliar and comforting, like learning to dance to a song they hadn't heard in years. Their connection deepened, built on shared vulnerability and quiet understanding. One crisp autumn afternoon, Jack surprised Emma with a visit to a small community garden tucked away between towering buildings. The garden was a hidden oasis, bursting with colors and life despite the encroaching city. Emma marveled at the rows of blooming flowers and the gentle hum of bees, a stark contrast to the concrete jungle just beyond the fence. Jack knelt beside a patch of marigolds, his hands steady as he tended to the plants. "This place has been my sanctuary for years," he said, glancing up at her with a soft smile. "It's where I come to remember that life can grow, even in the hardest places." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a quiet hope taking root. She reached out to touch a delicate petal, the vibrant orange glowing in the sunlight. "It's beautiful," she whispered. They spent the afternoon working side by side, planting seeds and clearing weeds, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt a sense of belonging, not just to a place but to someone who saw her for who she truly was. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the garden in a golden glow, Jack turned to her with a serious expression. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you," he said, his voice steady but hesitant. Emma's heart quickened. She had learned to expect the unexpected with Jack, but this felt different. Like the moment before a storm breaks or a secret is finally revealed. Jack took a deep breath. "I haven't been completely honest about why I was watching you that night in the rain." Emma's eyes searched his face, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "What do you mean?" He looked away for a moment, then back at her, his gaze unwavering. "I'm not just someone who understands pain. I'm also someone who's been trying to protect you from something you don't even know is coming." A chill ran down Emma's spine. "Protect me? From what?" Jack hesitated, then reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to her with a steady hand. "This is a letter I found a few weeks ago. It's from someone who wants to hurt you." Emma unfolded the paper carefully, her eyes scanning the words written in harsh, jagged handwriting. The message was clear and chilling. A warning, a threat, a promise of danger. Her breath caught in her throat. Who would do this? Why me? Jack's jaw tightened. "That's what I've been trying to figure out. But I promise you, I won't let anything happen to you." Emma looked up at him, the weight of fear and gratitude swirling in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I wanted to keep you safe," Jack said quietly. "Sometimes the truth can be more dangerous than the secret." The night air grew colder, and Emma wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady the storm of emotions inside. She realized that the stranger who had once been just a passerby in the rain was now her protector, her confidant, and maybe even something more. As they left the garden, the city lights flickering like distant stars, Emma knew that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. But for the first time she felt ready to face whatever came next, with Jack by her side. The following days were a blur of whispered phone calls, shadowed glances, and the creeping sense that danger was closing in. Emma found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, the letter's threat echoing in her mind like a dark drumbeat. Jack was her anchor through it all, his presence a steady shield against the growing storm. One evening, as the city lights flickered through the rain-streaked windows of Emma's apartment, Jack arrived with a determined look in his eyes. "We need to be careful," he said, setting down a small bag filled with supplies, flashlights, a first aid kit, and a burner phone. "I've been digging into who might be behind this. It's more complicated than I thought." Emma's heart pounded. "What have you found?" Jack pulled out a folder thick with documents and photos. "There's someone from my past, someone who doesn't want me involved with you. They've been watching you too, trying to scare you off." Emma swallowed hard. "Why would they care about me?" Jack's gaze softened. "Because you're connected to me now. And they want to keep us apart." The weight of his words settled heavily between them. Emma realized that the stranger who had once been just a passerby in the rain was now deeply entwined in a dangerous game she barely understood. Determined not to be a victim, Emma insisted on helping. Together they mapped out a plan, ways to stay safe, people to trust, and places to avoid. The fear was real, but so was their resolve. One night, as they sat in the dim light of Jack's apartment, Emma reached out and took his hand. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But I'm not going to run anymore." Jack squeezed her hand gently. "You're braver than you know." Their bond grew stronger in the face of adversity, each shared secret and stolen moment weaving a tapestry of trust and hope. Emma began to see that the past, no matter how dark, didn't have to define her future. But just as they started to believe in a safer tomorrow, the threat escalated. A broken window shattered the quiet of Emma's apartment one night, sending shards of glass scattering across the floor. Heart racing, she called Jack, who arrived within minutes, his face grim. "We need to move," he said urgently. "They're closer than we thought." With no time to pack, Emma grabbed what she could, her phone, a small bag, and the letter that had started it all. Jack led her through back alleys and side streets to a safe house he had arranged, a place where they could regroup and plan their next move. The days in hiding were tense and uncertain, but Emma found strength in Jack's unwavering support. They talked about the future, about dreams they dared to hope for despite the shadows looming over them. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered through the curtains, Jack looked at Emma with a quiet determination. "We're going to get through this. Together." Emma nodded, feeling a fierce resolve ignite within her. The stranger who had once been just a passerby in the rain was now her partner in every sense, a man willing to face the darkness by her side. And as the storm outside began to clear, Emma realized that sometimes, the greatest secrets weren't the ones that kept people apart, but the ones that brought them together. The safe house was a modest apartment on the edge of the city, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood where the hum of everyday life continued, unaware of the storm swirling just beyond its walls. Emma and Jack settled into a fragile routine, each day a careful balance between vigilance and the desperate need for normalcy. Emma found herself staring out the window more often than she cared to admit, watching the world move on without her. The fear that had gripped her since the letter arrived was still there, lurking beneath the surface, but it no longer controlled her. Jack's presence was a constant reminder that she wasn't alone. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Jack pulled out an old photo album. The pages were filled with pictures of a younger version of himself, smiling, carefree, surrounded by family and friends. Emma traced the edges of a photo where Jack stood beside a boy with bright eyes and a mischievous grin. "That's my brother," Jack said softly. Before everything changed. Emma looked up, sensing the weight behind his words. "Do you think he's the one behind all this?" Jack shook his head slowly. "I don't know. But whoever it is, they're good at hiding in the shadows." The silence between them was heavy but not uncomfortable. Emma felt a growing determination to uncover the truth, to face whatever demons lurked in Jack's past and protect the fragile future they were building together. Days later, Jack received a call that sent a chill down his spine. The voice on the other end was cold, unfamiliar, and filled with menace. "Stay away from her, Jack. Or you'll regret it." Emma heard the threat through the phone and felt a surge of fear and anger. "Who was that?" she demanded. Jack's jaw clenched. "Someone who wants to keep us apart. But they don't know what they're up against." That night, as they sat together in the dim light, Emma reached for Jack's hand. "We can't let fear win." Jack nodded, his eyes shining with resolve. "We'll fight this. Together." Their days became a blend of careful planning and stolen moments of tenderness. Emma learned to trust Jack not just with her safety, but with her heart. And Jack, in turn, found in Emma a reason to hope again. One afternoon, Emma received a package at the safe house. Inside was a small, worn notebook filled with cryptic notes and sketches. Jack examined it closely, his expression unreadable. "This belonged to my brother," he said quietly. "It might hold the answers we need." Together, they pored over the pages, piecing together clues that hinted at a tangled web of betrayal, secrets, and long-buried grudges. The deeper they delved, the clearer it became that the danger was closer than they had imagined. But amidst the uncertainty, Emma and Jack's bond only grew stronger. They found solace in each other's company, a refuge from the chaos that threatened to consume them. One night, as rain pattered softly against the window, Jack pulled Emma close. "No matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere." Emma smiled, her heart full. "Neither am I." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by shadows and whispers, they found a flicker of light, a promise that even in the darkest times, love could be a beacon guiding them home. The notebook became their roadmap through the tangled maze of Jack's past. Each page revealed fragments of a story Emma hadn't expected, one filled with loyalty, betrayal, and a secret that had been buried for years. As they pieced together the clues, the danger lurking in the shadows grew clearer, but so did the strength of their resolve. One afternoon, Jack and Emma sat at a small table in a quiet cafe, the notebook spread between them. Jack traced a line of writing with his finger, his brow furrowed. "This mentions a name, Mason. He was my brother's closest friend, but something went wrong." Emma leaned in, her eyes scanning the faded ink. Do you think Mason is behind the threats? Jack nodded slowly. It's possible. He disappeared years ago after a falling out with my brother. No one's heard from him since. The thought sent a shiver down Emma's spine. Whoever Mason was, he was someone to be feared. Determined to find answers, they began searching for anyone who might know Mason's whereabouts. Their investigation led them through dusty archives, whispered rumors, and late-night phone calls. Each step brought them closer to the truth, and closer to danger. One evening, as they returned to the safe house, a shadow moved just beyond the streetlight's glow. Emma's heart raced. Did you see that? Jack's eyes narrowed. Yeah, we're being watched. They hurried inside, locking the door behind them. The sense of being hunted was no longer a distant threat. It was real and immediate. Despite the fear, Emma refused to back down. We can't let them win. Jack agreed. We'll face this head-on. Together. Their days became a careful balance of vigilance and hope. Emma found strength in Jack's unwavering support, and Jack found courage in Emma's fierce determination. One night, as they sat by the window watching the city lights flicker, Jack took Emma's hand. I want you to know something, he said softly. You've changed my life. Emma smiled, her eyes shining. You've changed mine too. In the face of uncertainty, their love became a beacon, a light that refused to be extinguished. But the past had one final secret to reveal. A sudden knock at the door shattered the quiet. Jack opened it cautiously to find a man standing in the rain, his face shadowed but his eyes sharp. I'm Mason, the man said, his voice low and steady, and I've come to make things right. Emma and Jack exchanged a glance, the weight of the moment settling over them like a storm about to break. Mason stepped inside, the rain dripping from his coat onto the worn floorboards. His eyes flicked between Emma and Jack, a mixture of regret and determination etched into every line of his face. The tension in the room was thick, a silent storm waiting to break. Jack's voice was steady but cautious. Why now? After all these years? Mason sighed, running a hand through his damp hair. Because the past doesn't stay buried forever. I've made mistakes, big ones. But I'm here to fix them. To protect you both. Emma studied Mason carefully. There was something genuine in his tone, but years of secrets had taught her to be wary. How do we know we can trust you? Mason met her gaze without flinching. You don't? Not yet. But I'm willing to prove it. Over the next few days, Mason shared pieces of the story that had been hidden in shadows for so long. He spoke of betrayal within their circle, of a dangerous game that had spiraled out of control. The threats, the fear, they were all part of a larger plan to keep the truth from coming to light. Emma listened, her heart pounding as the pieces fell into place. The danger wasn't just about Jack or her, it was about something much bigger, something that had cost lives and shattered trust. Jack's jaw tightened. We need to stop this. For good. Together, the three of them devised a plan to expose the people behind the threats and bring justice to those who had been hurt. It was risky and the stakes were high, but Emma felt a fierce resolve burning inside her. One night, under the cover of darkness, they moved into action. The city was quiet, the streets empty save for the distant hum of traffic. Emma's hands trembled as she followed Jack and Mason through the shadows, but she refused to let fear control her. They reached an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, the place where the final pieces of the puzzle would fall into place. Inside, voices echoed, harsh, angry, and filled with menace. Emma's breath caught as she recognized one of the voices. It was someone she had trusted once, someone who had betrayed them all. The confrontation was tense and dangerous, but Emma and Jack stood side by side, their bond unbreakable. Mason's knowledge and courage helped them navigate the treacherous path, and together, they uncovered the truth that had been hidden for so long. When the dust settled, justice was served, not through violence but through the power of truth and resilience. The threats ceased, the shadows lifted, and Emma felt a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying begin to ease. In the quiet aftermath, Jack took Emma's hand, his eyes filled with gratitude and love. We made it through. Together. Emma smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. I never want to be alone again. Jack pulled her close, their hearts beating in sync. You won't be. Not ever. As dawn broke over the city, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold, Emma knew that her life had changed forever. The stranger who had once been just a passerby in the rain was now her partner, her protector, and the man she trusted with her heart. And the secret he revealed, the truth that changed everything, was not just a story of danger and fear, but a testament to the power of love, courage, and the unbreakable bonds that can form when two souls find each other in the darkest of times.